Is there still hope, Buckeye and Big Ten fans, for football in 2020? Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, bringing you Ohio State football live discussion as we do each and every week with these three gentlemen. We got Steve Hellwagon from Bucknuts 247 Sports, Kevin Noon there in the middle from Buckeye Grove on the Rivals Network, and of course, Tony Gerdeman from Buckeye Scoop. Gentlemen, how we doing today?
Doing good.
Is there a little bit more hope out there?
Fool me once, fool me twice. As I put on social, I won't believe we have Big Ten football until Rutgers is down 21-0.
Well, that would confirm it right there. That would be like, okay, yes, we are watching Big Ten football. Yes, absolutely. There it is.
That's when we'll know.
All right, Steve, we're going to kick off with you in regards to your thoughts because so much has happened in regards to activity, rhetoric. I certainly want to give credit and credence and validity to the big push that's being put on by parents, most of all, players, the fan bases out there, and to a certain extent, the coaches, of course, in certain areas to get Big Ten football back on the field in 2020, but nothing's been accomplished in a concrete form to let us know that the league office is in any way seriously considering reversing its decision. Where do you think this thing stands?
Well, I think this morning we're seeing a lot of people talking about the potential that they may try and start playing football in November around Thanksgiving time in the Big Ten, and not sure really what you gain by doing that. Does that still make you eligible for the playoff in January? I don't know. Probably more questions than there are answers right now. The three of us, Tony, Kevin, and myself, were all in Chicago a week ago today. I know we taped the last show on Wednesday. So since that last show 9 days ago, we were all in Chicago attending the rally for Big Ten parents. There were about 30 parents there, about half of them aligned with Ohio State and led obviously by Mr. Wade, Shaun Wade's dad, Randy Wade. And that was a nice event, I thought. They're trying to gain some audience with the Big Ten to get some answers as to why it was canceled for the fall season. I know in Kevin Warren's terms it's postponed, but if you're not playing in September, October, November, you've canceled the traditional season, basically. And this pie in the sky hope that they might play in January, February, March, whatever that might be, to me seems somewhat ridiculous, but if that's what they're going to do, I don't see a lot of traction being made with the Big Ten to get them to reverse their decision. They came out, I think, a week ago Wednesday with the announcement that the decision was final, would not be revisited, and have really seen nothing from the Big Ten in the interim to indicate anything otherwise. It's very unfortunate, obviously, and I think everybody knows where we all stand, is that we want a fall season to cover a fall season just as much as the fans want a fall season to watch the fall season. But it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. It's very unfortunate. Dave Biddle from our staff said this could be considered one of the biggest blunders in the history of sports if the Big Ten doesn't play this season and have a ready-made national championship contender like Ohio State and a Heisman Trophy candidate like Justin Fields unable to play. So I think that, again, there's been some traction today about maybe moving it up from January to November. But I think Kevin's friend Nicole Arbach came out on Twitter a little while ago and said that from a Big Ten level, that's never been discussed. And we had intelligence that Ryan Day maybe did a Zoom call yesterday with some parents and said that the plan was still hopeful for January with no mention of November. So not sure where November came from. And last thing I'll say is Nebraska, 8 players at Nebraska have filed a lawsuit in a local court there. I'm not sure what the ramification of that's going to be. They filed a suit against the Big Ten looking for documents and transparency on what the decision was. I don't know if anything's ever been ruled on there. If the judge just took it under advisement, we'll come back with the ruling. on if the Big Ten needs to provide anything else in terms of why the decision was made. Not sure if students for athletes from other schools can join that lawsuit, since they're not Nebraskaite and may not be considered to have standing in the state of Nebraska. This could be something along the federal lines, that if athletes from all the schools banded together, maybe they could force the Big Ten's hand to coming to the bargaining table to talk about things. But again, just a terrible, terrible situation brought about by really poor leadership. And, that's my take, and I'm sticking to it. So I'm interested to see what Tony and Kevin have thought about the events of the last 7 to 9 days on their part.
You need to.
All right.
Go ahead, Kevin.
All right, I was going to say I'll jump in. The November date has been thrown around by a couple of outlets, the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, Tom Dienhart from the Purdue rival site, and other places. So there is some validity to November, in my opinion, and I really am operating under the opinion that that might be the worst case scenario in terms of, I think that if we're going to see a season, it is going to be November versus January, just based on people I've spoken to. A lot of the hubbub today kind of came out of a coach's call, and usually the coaches' calls are on Thursdays, and I've been told by some well-placed sources that the last two have been chaotic, to say the least. Coaches are angry. The Big Ten has been represented on the call, but not necessarily by the head guy. A lot of ducking, a lot of this, that, and the other. It certainly feels like the reports that are coming out now saying, well, this was a president's and chancellor's decision. I think that, that's being placed in the media by the Big Ten right now. I do think that there is a lot of traction toward accelerating this. My concern, my question really is, and I understand that we're not 6 weeks away from October 3rd, I guess, which is, October 3rd is when you really would have to start the season to have a chance to sync up your schedule with all of the other conferences and be able to get in under the wire for a December 20th college football playoff final poll and be able to get into there. But again, I'm not really sure what we are gaining right now by saying, well, let's just start at Thanksgiving versus October 3rd. The heart ailment reports have largely been debunked. We could sit there and say that maybe work toward a vaccine will be further along in late November versus earlier October. But I really think that this is just a case of the Big Ten trying to have its cake and eat it too, maybe putting out some trial balloons right now. And obviously the red meat eating fan base of the Big Ten is all about let's play as soon as freaking possible. And, I think that I don't think we're going to have to wait until early January to see football. I think that the worst case scenario is going to be that Thanksgiving, but in some ways that's going to be worse because we're going to see them get so close to the finish line, but still not be able to get to the point of where we're able to see 4 conferences or 5 conferences, if anybody really gives a crap about the Big 12 or the Pac-12, to be able to sync together and be able to have a sort of regular season with a regular postseason. So, a lot of frustrations there. And everybody, I suggest to keep following Tom Mars on Twitter, the attorney who up with so many of the NC2A appeals. He has issued Freedom of Information requests to 13 of the 14 member schools, and it could be really interesting as some of that information gets out there.
The thing with the we just saw a little note come out from Nicole Auerbach today saying that a reminder that it's the Big Ten presidents who postponed the season. And I guess you probably could have put in there, it's the Big Ten presidents. It wasn't Kevin Warren. And this is per a source. And I'm just reading it like, is this per Kevin Warren saying, hey, let everybody know it's the presidents that postponed this. And then when, the Big Ten miraculously comes back in, say, October or November, he can maybe put forth that, I got us football back, everybody. But like Kevin said, if you are, say, just a few weeks too late to be part of the playoffs, that's all people are going to think about is you could have gotten on the field a month earlier and you could have been a part of this. It would be less damaging to start in January and just be completely different from the ongoing season. To be playing your regular season concurrently with the SEC and the ACC and the Pac-12 and not be part of the playoffs would just be a slap in the face to all of the Big Ten fans, all of the Ohio State fans, the Pac-12 fans, not necessarily Pac-12 fans, the people who care and who have a shot at the playoffs. So obviously we wouldn't be talking about the Pac-12. But it would just be such a tease, and you wouldn't be able to take part in it. And I appreciate the Big Ten possibly going back on their incorrect stance or trying to have football here, and we should applaud them for that. And it feels like we're just being overly critical if we then criticize the decision. But this decision, if you choose to come back just at a later date, just like a month after everybody else starts, why? What is the rationale there? Knowing that we still haven't gotten actual rationale from Kevin Warren and the Big Ten. That letter that he put out, you can go line by line and disprove and dispute every single factor that he put in there. Like one of the factors is we were worried we might run out of tests, and so we canceled August 11th. Cancel the season when you run out of tests, not while you've got plenty. And it's not like – now I know you guys are aware of like supply and demand. Like people want tests now, so they're not just going to not make tests anymore. Like there's not going to be like, you know what? People don't want tests anymore, so we're just not going to make them. No, they're going to continue to make more and more. Gets cheaper, gets easier, gets quicker, as we've seen in the past week with this new $5 spit test. But you cancel for all of these different reasons in August 11th, when the entire time we've been saying there's no need. And now here we are, a couple of weeks later, and it's like, you see? And this is what we're talking about. When things look more and more like college football is going to happen, and everybody is moving full steam ahead, even with teams with positive outbreaks, and entire positions being wiped out, according to like Lincoln Riley and other places. And yet they're moving forward and the conferences are moving forward. But the thought of, what if we run out of tests, or, contact tracing is so hard, let's just cancel. That was the Big Ten's decision. This just seems too hard after they spent all of this time in creating this incredible schedule, and then they shut it all down. So I'm thinking all of these different dates, yeah, the Big Ten is definitely trying to figure something out, and then people keep running with each one. And it's like, well, these are all just models at this point, and we'll see what happens. But to start the season outside of that, like October, whatever time frame where you can still get into the playoffs, would just be the cherry on the Sunday of just such an asinine fall for the Big Ten.
Yes. To say we're going to play in the spring, none of us are for that. 99% of the fan bases are not for that, but at least it's a separation to say we, for whatever reason, whether you believe us or not, whether you think it's valid or not, have decided that we can't play a fall season. We're playing a separate season, and give it whatever validity you give it. But to tantalize and to tease, to put it, or I will say torture the fan bases by saying, okay, while you're watching Alabama, Auburn, and you're watching Clemson, North Carolina, and all these relevant games that are concluding toward a championship with these other three conferences, we're starting our season, and you're going to see week 1, Ohio State, Illinois on Thanksgiving weekend, but don't connect the two, because we're not going to be able to compete with them, because we're going to be in game 5 when they're playing the college football play. I just think that is beyond asinine. I'm looking at a calendar right now. And of course, I've not completely worked this out, but just looking at the dates, I'm looking at Saturday, October 24th. And what you would be able to accomplish there is play 5 games, take a bye week. And obviously, you don't necessarily need to regiment it where you're taking an entire week off for the entire league. But basically, you're fitting 10 games in 11 weeks. And then you forget the Big Ten championship game. Team with the best record wins whatever your tiebreaker needs to be. And you take a week off, and then you're ready to compete in the college football playoff if you start on October 24th.
Which, of course, gives us a couple weeks between this October 3rd that a lot of people believe that you need to start by. But if you're able to do that and you do take that the championship game out of there certainly is plenty of opportunity to get to that magical 6 weeks that everybody seems to believe. You know, some of the schlep rocks out there who have been hating on all this are like, well, a lot of places don't even have their players on campus right now. They have these things. They're called planes and cars. And if you know what, if you're really that dedicated to this, you're going to get your ass back on campus and get ready to play. I mean, it's just there are so many Debbie Downers out there right now about this that are not about embracing solutions, that just want to find more problems with the situation. I mean, it's sickening. It's sickening, and I'm disgusted by. I can't even get on Twitter half the time because I can't even read half this crap.
And that's just from Steve.
Well,
Yeah, I made my feelings pretty plain last week's show. Just saying I was utterly disgusted. I had people checking on me for my well-being after last week's show. To be honest with you, people were like, "You seem so depressed by this and so upset, so irate." And you know, there's a lot of feeling involved in this, and again, we're no closer to any of the answers to why this was done or why anybody thought this was a great thing that needed to be done at this time. And I don't know if we'll ever get to the full bottom of it. The Big Ten and Commissioner Warren have done a great job of keeping a lid on their message and the message that comes out. It's not a fulfilling message, that's for sure. No one's happy with any of their explanations, and I don't know. I'm just I just continue to be dumbfounded by the whole thing, and you know, people are asking. I mean, this stuff's happening, you know, in real time here. People are wanting to know, well, if you play in November, can you get into the playoff? Well, gee, I don't know. Would they let you in if you only play half the number of games of the rest of the schools by the time the playoff field is set? So who the heck knows? I don't know. I'm just still a little bit down in the dumps about the whole thing, and doing the best I can to cope with it and to move forward. So I don't know. I'm just kind of dumbfounded by the whole thing.
It's funny because
I cope with it like this. You know,
my wife told me this week that her and her sister were texting back and forth like, I don't think Tony's doing so good. I think he needs football. And it's like, yeah, maybe I wasn't in the best mood this week, and maybe I am just you know, I was looking for a high school game to travel to on Saturday. I just want to go somewhere. I just want to go and do football, and I can't, and it's. And I don't want to also like get my hopes up that it's coming this fall. You know, I'm on board with January because you know that's like this glimmer of hope that makes more sense than starting in November, I guess. Like I saw somebody talking about Ohio State and Michigan open the season at the Rose Bowl January 1st, and I'm thinking to put home jerseys on both of those teams and let's do it. If it's a season opener, that would be like the one time I could be okay with Ohio State, Michigan being the season opener. You put it out in the Rose Bowl and make it special. Separate your season from everybody else, but to have it just be the tag along, the little brother of the ongoing season, where no, you don't get to be included in the fun stuff after 10 o'clock or whatever. You get to go home and then everybody else gets to go have fun. Yeah, it would not be ideal, and I don't know how you come back from that as like the decision makers. Like, where is where is that decision making? Where is the reasoning behind that? And as we still wait for the reasoning behind the initial decision, which the judge gave the Big Ten until Friday or until Monday, I believe, to answer some of the Nebraska players' charges, and we'll see what goes from there. And it sure seems like maybe the Big Ten is thinking, this is just too much of a pain. Let's just, maybe let's just have football. It's just creating too much of an annoyance to not have it. And plus, when the Big Ten lawyer is like, it would be incredibly harmful to reveal the documents from the president's meetings, then maybe if you don't want to be incredibly harmed, have some football instead.
The only time I've ever heard a lawyer make that case, it would be incredibly harmful, is when they know their client has done something wrong. If they had nothing to hide and were completely transparent with this decision and stand behind this decision, they should be shouting from the rooftops what the reasons were. And they're not. They're not shouting from any rooftops. They're trying to hide in their ivory tower and hide behind this attorney who I assume was a local person from Lincoln or Omaha who was entrusted to jump in there real quick, unless they flew somebody from Chicago there at a moment's notice to answer that lawsuit. I don't know. I just nothing the Big Ten does in this case surprises me. They have acted and hidden, and there's just no transparency at all. The Hart thing was a big deal the first day and hasn't been mentioned once by anybody since.
I talked to an attorney about this, and I'm going to just read a little snippet of what he said about that certain instance, though. He said that the attorney, being the Big Ten attorney, is saying that allowing a plaintiff to obtain that discovery if they don't have a claim in the first place sets the terrible precedent, which is arguably true. So the argument is whether or not that they truly have a claim here at this point. So, and this is one attorney, and obviously we're going to have attorneys that are all over across the board on what their views are or whatnot. This is a guy that I trust the legal opinion of and spoke to about it. But I do agree that the optics of the way that they came out and said, well, it would be really, really bad if we had to present this or whatnot, certainly sounds like that there's something, that there's something to hide there. This attorney I spoke to said that, maybe it wasn't exactly presented the right way, but the fact that they've been pretty scared of everything that Tom Mars has been saying in terms of the FOIA requests and whatnot, I just, maybe I need to be fitted for my tinfoil hat, but I just really think that something stinks behind the scenes, and we, have not gotten there yet.
We've all been covering the Big Ten long enough that we don't need fitted for the hats. We have them in the corner.
True.
Good point. This conference operates in a shadow of silence, it seems, and strange things happen, like Rutgers and Maryland out of nowhere, and I don't know. It just. I come back, I've used this analogy a number of times. In the 1990s, I think the Western Athletic Conference and the Mountain West are combined into one league. They had split off, and then they got together as one large 16-team league with each league's champions playing in the championship game. And the problem that you had was one team would win and there'd be 15 losers and 15 unhappy fan bases. Even though it's just the Mountain West, there's still people out there who care about football. And eventually it disbanded and went back to separate 8-team leagues, because you just can't keep 16 divergent fan bases and college cultures. What's true at BYU isn't the same at San Diego State, isn't the same at Boise State, just the all politics is local type thing. And so I wonder if we're starting to see some of that within the Big Ten, and that some relationships will be fracturing. And, when the new TV deal comes up in 3 years, could there be a new bargaining unit that puts together a cabal of some of these teams, and they just go off on their own and form their own conference, because the money adds up. If you follow the money, the schools got $55 million apiece last year. The overall deal had to have then been worth at least $750 million. So if you got rid of the riffraff and just had an 8 or 9 team or 10 team football league with Ohio State and other like-minded schools, and you took that $750 million and divided, that's $75 million. If you're able to push that to $1 billion, that's $100 million. For each one of those schools. So to me, I think there's something out there. I think, whether it's broadcast TV, cable TV, streaming, whatever it is, there's something bigger and better on the horizon. Maybe Netflix gets involved in it. I'm just thinking outside the box, but it could be time for, a changing of the way that we, a paradigm shift of what we look at when we think about Big Ten football that's been around since 1896. It may not look the same in 2025. So, things change over time, and maybe it's time for like-minded institutions that value things a certain way to break off and do things the way they want to do them.
I've agreed with that for a long time. I've said that at the end of these rights deals, and the Big Ten is the first major conference to come up with the end of their TV deal. I don't know if we're going to just see it be a 10. I think it's going to be more of a fracture from the NC2A per se. I don't think or for Division I FBS. I think you see X amount of teams who are able to, at one point when cost of attendance were the buzzwords, be able to make those types of payments, be able to do the things that are necessary. And now that we've got name, image, likeness, all of that coming out, I think that you're just going to have a fracture of the 130 teams that are FBS to where it's going to be 36, 48 teams that are the haves, and everybody else, well, you guys still can have the old traditional system at this point. And you do bring in somebody like a Netflix or an Amazon, or you really do think outside of the box in terms of where your TV dollars are going to be, and your streaming, because so much of it now streaming as well too. You get your streaming dollars to be able to make that happen, and you have the teams that you do that are willing to go that extra level in terms of cost of attendance, name, image, likeness, et cetera, to be able to field the highest level of championship football and kind of go from there. And I think you end up having to have a recertification process where just because you're in there doesn't mean that you're in there for good. If you sit there and you start coming up and you're just, as I liken to NASCAR, a start and park guy, you sit there, you make the field, you run a couple laps and you park it and you just collect your entry purse, you're out. I mean, you have to be competitive. And I think that would help, I think that would help make the game more exciting. And it certainly would free us from some of these bottlenecks.
I do wonder what happens in terms of the academic side where you have these research institutions. Do you just separate football from the Big Ten? Like Notre Dame is in different, different programs have teams, sports in different conferences. Notre Dame's in the ACC for basketball, but not football. Is this a thing where football is separate and basketball stays in the Big Ten and Big Ten stays as is, but Ohio State and Michigan go off? Ohio State, Michigan, Nebraska, Penn State go off and become part of this elite, like the college football FBS elite division. And then you have, because I still think like the group of fives should all play for their own national title. So if you go up and you have this elite division, then the programs behind them outside of that elite division should play for their own national title. And I know UCF and those schools don't think they should have to, but how are your national titles doing? And Boise State, where are your rings? Where's your national championship? You guys clamored for the playoffs. You've got the playoffs. How many times have you been there? So just, I want those games to mean more, like the group of five stuff. And so, yeah, if you want to go and create an elite level of college football, I'm all for that as well. I would just also like to see the teams below that go ahead and play for something as well.
You heard that. Gerd wants everybody to get a trophy. You're part of the problem, son. Part of the problem.
No, I want. Maybe I've been watching too much soccer. I saw it once. That was probably too much. I don't want everybody to get a trophy. I just want every champion to get a trophy.
All right. I'll let it slide. Maybe.
But not co-East Division Big Ten champs.
Then what? Then what will Michigan have? That's the only trophy they've had recently. And I kid because I care. Really.
Michigan needs to keep hope alive that they're going to play some of these neutral site games in a town they've never been to, Indianapolis. How cool would that be if they're able to experience the joy of playing on the Colts home field there at Lucas Oil Stadium, somewhere that they've been longing to get to all these years, a full decade now, it seems 9 years, I guess, of the Big Ten championship game, and they've never made it. And, you feel bad for programs like that have never been able to play on that stage in that wonderful stadium. And now, possibly some neutral site games there against Rutgers or Indiana or Maryland or whoever might be their best hope. So,
any Michigan GPS will probably automatically reject that input.
Invalid entry.
Yeah.
It'll write it over and send them to West Lafayette or Bloomington.
If they ever do get there, they'll find out about the shrimp cocktail at St. Elmo. It's hot. It's hot. Be careful.
I'll go to 3 or 4 neutral site games in Indianapolis. I have no problem with that. So,
all it took for Michigan to get there was a pandemic.
We'll never know, but Steve started out this portion of the conversation by breaking down the Big Ten contract. And it would be fascinating to know. And of course, those numbers aren't there, and they're not even in the numbers of the folks that negotiated. But you take away Ohio State from the Big Ten, what does that number mean? Then you take away the next tier of Penn State, Michigan, Wisconsin, basically. Nebraska, where does that go? Because Nebraska, even though they're down on the field, yes, brings in the ratings on the TV screens. Then you peel away Michigan State, Iowa, etc., and you go with, the Illinois contribution to that, the Rutgers and Maryland contribution to that contract is basically null and void. Their portion in the ESPNU noon game on Saturdays is just a throw-in. So yeah, that's being carried by one institution primarily, and then about 4 or 5 that certainly have credibility and pull.
You get 2.5 TV markets out of it. You get New York, you get the DC, and then whatever Champaign-Urbana is, market size like 198 or something like that.
And I'm also trying to envision what is the social media backlash every Saturday, and then the national media treatment of a Big Ten schedule and Big Ten games. If you're watching a College Game Day, if you're watching whatever the and I should know this, whatever our wrap-up show is called late Saturday night and on down the line, Ohio State and Penn State are playing, but it's only week 3 of the Big Ten season, and it's week 11 of the regular season with everybody else. Therefore, this game doesn't count. What is the treatment of those games? It's going to be like a laughing stock. Social media is going to have a field day with the Big Ten.
Herbie will have his hand motions. They're playing their little game over there that doesn't matter or anything. He'll have his little hand motions. Forget about the Big Ten.
If he starts that, he'll have to move further away than Nashville.
But it's a PR mess as well, because now you're either going to be ignored or ridiculed. There's because how do you even? Yes, you have to explain they are in week this. They are not part of the playoffs, and I don't know. Do you want to distract your audience like that? Is the audience tuning in to hear about the Big Ten? I doubt it. Like the Big Ten, do they want to? Does the Big Ten audience, knowing that they're not going to be part of the college football playoffs, want to watch ESPN and see them preview all of these? Clemson versus North Carolina, Alabama versus Tennessee. Do they want to watch that, knowing like it's just more of that whole pain and teasing thing that's going on. And, maybe they will they watch the Big Ten Network? I don't know. Will the Big Ten Network ever again show current events? I don't know, because they haven't been for a while. They have not yet acknowledged any of the parent protests, I don't believe, although, I say that I haven't watched. But I don't know that Big Ten fans would be, or Ohio State fans especially, would be clamoring to watch game day when they're not part of it. And especially if they'd probably be more inclined to watch it if they weren't playing. If Ohio State wasn't playing, then they would be if Ohio State is playing. And now they have to hear about all of this stuff that they can't be a part of. It's like I don't know. It's like watching somebody open Christmas presents from outside, looking through the living room window.
It's basically going to be the experience I have 7 or 8 times a year watching Ohio State football, and you guys do as well, except it's your jobs and you got to hang with it, where it's 35-0 at half, and I'm seeing all these great games kick off at 3:30 and thinking, man, I want to keep up with Ohio State, but game's over. I might as well go watch Alabama and LSU play or whomever.
Well, and we do have conversations going on in the press box during those games as we all have laptops open with with the games on and stuff like that. So we do, yell from time to time down the way, like what the score is at Texas A&M, Texas, or not that one, but you know what I'm saying. We try to keep up, but
the relevant games, sure,
exactly. It's tough.
We do play college fantasy football some years, and we have to have our bragging rights amongst each other. So we are, we're not paying attention to the teams, but we're paying attention to what Chuba Hubbard is doing, or somebody along those lines who could help carry our team.
I'm fascinated by the motivation of Shaun Wade's father. His son is a top 10 to 15 pick in the NFL draft. Even if he doesn't play, I got to think that not playing doesn't really hurt him, but the drive, the motivation, the passion to want to play football and see this season through, it's pretty impressive to me, unless I'm missing something.
No, I agree with you. And that has been something that's kind of led me to scratch my head as well, that, they've picked up this cause, and Randy in particular picked it up, has been so eloquent about what he's trying to do here. And you're right. His son isn't one of the people who absolutely need to play. It would help his cause if he's able to go out and play at a high level. He might move up from, early second or late first up to high first, but kind of like Jeff Okudah did last year. But I agree with you. It's been very illuminating to me that people who are behind kids, and again, like Fields doing his petition drive that basically meant nothing to the Big Ten. They've never even addressed it or anything of that nature. I don't know. It just the whole thing. You want to salute these people for all the activity and everything that they've done, and yet you just wonder what's been accomplished by any of it. And you hope something comes of it. So I agree with you. I salute Randy Wade for what he's done. The event last Friday was very simple. It was not meant to be an in-your-face type thing. It was more of a we are concerned parents, and we feel that a decision was made in error. We'd like to know more about what happened with the decision, some transparency, and consider, if you would, that a way to make this right for our kids and all the athletes. They were speaking for athletes in every fall sport at every Big Ten school. It was, I think, that what happened there, in my opinion, and I had lunch with Tony after we attended the rally. Seemed to me there was a pressure that was building, that week, that they're coming to Chicago to make a national scene about what the Big Ten did. And on Wednesday of that week is when Kevin Warren and the conference put out their letter, which really didn't give you any more information on what the decision was or why, but it firmly state, we will not revisit this, that we consider this matter closed, or whatever their wording was. And I think they short-circuited the parents' meeting. They really took a lot of the starch and the steam out of that meeting because the Big Ten had made it apparent, or put it in writing that this is a done deal. We are not going back on this, and that's unfortunate. That in this day and age, I understand decisions need to be made and these kind of things and whatever, but I think in media coverage since then, to some of his favorite reporters, like Pete Amell and Teddy Greenstein and Nicole Arbach, his big three, maybe, as we might forget about Bosch and Dwayne Wade and LeBron. We've got a new big three, and it's Nicole Arbach, Pete Amell, and Teddy Greenstein, with a side dish of Shannon Ryan from the Chicago Tribune writing a thing that the parents from Ohio State should just shut up and take it, or whatever. That was her message without saying it in those words. Don't stand up for your kids. Randy Wade made a very good point in the rally. He said, we stand up and we use our voice, he said, because we're not paid by the college. We have our own jobs. We're not beholden to the college. The coach can't do it because he's got a contract, an employment contract with the school. He can't come out against the school or the Big Ten. The kids can't do it because they've got a scholarship agreement with the school, and they probably can't disparage the school as part of that, or risk losing their scholarship, or risk losing their status as a starter or backup or whatever, get their extra pair of gloves and shoes or whatever. You don't get those this week. Oh yeah, you got left off that list. How the behind the scenes crap happens. So parents did speak up because they're the only ones who can. And in this case, I applaud them for what they did. And again, where it's going to lead, I don't know. But Warren, getting back, I'm going to brand these guys the big three: Teddy Greenstein, Pete Amell, Nicole Arbach. They all seem to have an entree to the Big Ten commissioner, and he picks and chooses who he wants to talk to. And that's my line. You can quote me on that one.
I just think it's interesting how Randy Wade is doing all this work on Sean's behalf for Sean to just up and go to LSU after Orgeron came out and started trying to recruit players from the Big Ten and the Pac-12. I mean, that big fat Cajun hasn't, and I'm fat, so it's my word, I can use it. That big fat Cajun, he obviously doesn't understand what tampering is, but I did sit there when everybody's like, "Oh, I'm so worried about XYZ leaving." I'm like, "Well, we're just a couple weeks away from the season, and if you're worried about Sean Wade at this point, Randy is putting on frequent flyer miles. He's going to be up here for the rally on Saturday and everything else. That's a lot of work on a car that is up on blocks and has no engine in it. So it's interesting."
I will say this for Randy, and it was Sean Wade has two high school teammates, or I don't know, I wouldn't say teammates. One Tyreek Johnson was a high school teammate with Sean Wade. He's a redshirt sophomore corner, and then they have a redshirt freshman, Marcus Crowley, who's a running back from the same high school. And Randy Wade is very close with those kids as well. And so I'll just share it. When I talked to Randy well before all of this stuff went down, I told him, hey, when Sean's gone, don't be a stranger. And he's like, I still got two kids left at Ohio State, so I'm still a Buckeye dad. And so that just gives you some of the insight into why he is fighting so hard, because it's not just for Sean. And as he said, Sean's going to be fine regardless. There's other players there that maybe don't have anybody speaking out for them. And so that's why that's just part of why he's doing that. Steve said, talking about the Shannon Ryan thing, I wanted to mention for people who are dismissive of how many people were there Friday, as my podcast co-host Tom Orr says, if 25 or 30 people show up to your job to say you're not doing a very good job, that's not insignificant. That's pretty significant when 25 people take their time out of their day to come from all over the Midwest, all over the country, to say like, hey, you're doing a pretty shoddy job. That's not something you just dismiss. That's a lot of people. And then to touch on the Ed Orgeron thing, when he puts that out there and then the AP just runs it for him, I'm reading the tweet from the AP guy in New Orleans or wherever, and it's like it was an ad. They're running an ad for a cornerback for LSU, and I was completely shocked by that. That's where things are now, and that's what was deemed to be the most important thing to report out of that from the AP is, hey everybody who's not playing, LSU needs a corner. LSU's a pretty good program. If you're a corner or any corners, maybe call up Ed Orgeron, his numbers in the book, see what can happen. They have the transfer portal for that. They don't need the AP to go running messages for them. I didn't like that much at all.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to think, but this had to be expected that there would be some tampering and these kind of things. I think, timing may have played into this, that the Big Ten didn't cancel until right up against the start of school. And there may be some NCAA legalities, like once somebody has started the fall semester at one school, they can't go play somewhere else in the same semester. So I don't know what all the restrictive rules are about that, but if their school that they have the scholarship to isn't sponsoring court this season, it would seem to me they'd get a free pass and instant eligibility somewhere else. But guess we should never assume how the NCAA is going to rule on things like that. Just a terrible situation made worse by poor leadership and poor judgment. And I don't know. I'm just again, just like Kevin, I'm back to being disgusted by the whole thing. So
Ohio State 8 AP poll natties, not necessarily rolling off the tongue, but we have a good back and forth from time to time. He's still mad at me for not recognizing Ohio State's 1970 national championship, in which they lost the Rose Bowl to Jim Plunkett and Stanford, and wants me to do a video going through the entire season and the national championship contenders and so forth. But he did recognize today is our 68th edition, which could honor the 68 national championship team that, of course, won the Rose Bowl over O.J. Simpson and company. 50-14, didn't go for 3 against Michigan. Never forget. Good stuff. Also, we've got a commit to touch on. Don't know what the insight is, and if you guys have had a chance to look into the scouting report on Tyleik Williams, 10th rated player at his position of defensive tackle in the country, number 5 rated player in the state of Virginia, top 160 player, and that's all according to the 247 Sports Composite. Of course, we're not going to diss Kevin's outfit. He can give us the metrics on Tyleik Williams according to Rivals, of course, but that is the composite numbers on Tyleik Williams, so pretty talented player, guys. I don't know who wants to jump in on Williams.
I'll jump in real quick, just so I think Ohio State fans are going to like the 247 ranking of him better. We have him as a 4-star, but outside of the top 250. Some I know I had nothing to do with it. I'll give you the emails of who to complain to. Some kids who end up playing defensive tackle in college, or kids that are ends that slide in, they look at them, they're like, oh, you got a big butt, we can put some weight on you, and there you go. This kid truly is a defensive tackle, and you want to jump on those types of players when you can land them. Seems to have good instincts, strong kid. I think he is a solid pickup. It does create the question of what does this mean for Ohio State and Tywone Malone, a player who, at least in the Rivals Future Cast, 100% have him going to Ohio State. He is a top baseball prospect as well. So, he's a guy who could go early in the amateur draft and maybe just skip college altogether. Could be a 2-sport type of guy. And, not trying to say anything that Ohio State baseball isn't getting it done, but it's not the same as SEC or ACC baseball. And, I think that people are probably a little less optimistic about landing Malone right now, but Williams is a huge pickup, not any sort of plan B. He very much is a plan A type of guy, real legitimate offer list out there. He can play. Probably not going to be a year 1 guy, but he'll get into that rotation pretty quick.
Yeah, it's just like a big nose tackle, basically, at a position where the Buckeyes have diminished their numbers of like true nose tackles and true defensive tackles, because as Kevin said, a lot of times they've just been bringing in big defensive ends and then growing them into three techs, which Larry Johnson likes to do. But you also need those big guys, the Devon Hamilton types. And I don't know if that's who this is here. The Taiwan Malone I think I saw what's the lead? Mike from Rivals just put in a future cast for Ohio State with Malone like today, which I thought was interesting, given everything going on. And because once I saw Williams commit, I just assumed that meant Malone was off the table. And I know that's not necessarily the case. There's just, when you have a guy like this, a big bird like this in hand, you take it. Malone is interesting. He's also, there's clips of him playing wide receiver as well. So that's another interesting guy to watch. But yeah, they've just gotten a little too thin, in my opinion, at defensive tackle. And so if you're going to load up, I guess this is the year to do it, because I still see JT Tuimoloau ending up a defensive tackle as well. He's a big defensive end. When you're already like 6'5", 270 or whatever, it's hard to imagine that you're going to stay outside. But Joey Bosa did it, so we'll see.
Yeah, I too am excited about the commitment. He had offers from everybody: Alabama, Florida, Florida State, Georgia, LSU, Virginia Tech, obviously they're in his own state. So Michigan State, North Carolina, as I see here as well. So a guy, again, you can't have enough big guys who can run and make plays. And, obviously 330 pounds, I don't know how well he's going to run, but you can't have enough big guys that can make plays, particularly in a physical conference like the Big Ten Conference. You got to be able to win those battles up front. And when push comes to shove, and I think this is a guy with the depth situation, defensive tackle, that will really help the situation at Ohio State. They're down a little bit. Maybe one of the few areas on the roster where they're a little bit thin right now, but I think he'll help alleviate some of that as well. So, yeah, it's amazing. Again, another player from an area that they are playing college football, the ACC region, and he's coming to play in the Big Ten. He's going to play at Ohio State, obviously, and kind of debunk some of the idea that not playing this season was going to kill recruiting. Ohio State now back on top. They had briefly fallen below Alabama in the team rankings, which I don't put a lot of credence in all that. I don't worry too much about that. Just get great players and fill your position needs and go from there. So I think that this achieves a lot of those aims, no question.
Folks, I hope you realize what we have here each and every week with these three. Steve Hellwagon from Bucknuts 247 Sports, Kevin Noon from Rivals Buckeye Grove, Tony Gerdeman from Buckeye Scoop. Want to give each of you a few seconds just to talk about what you've got available there, where people can find you, any podcasts you're involved in, and so forth. Tony, we'll start with you.
Yeah, you can find me at BuckeyeScoop.com. I'm on Twitter at Tony Gerdeman, TonyGerdeman. I'm there roughly 27 to 28 hours a day. This weekend I'll be out going to go catch a Marysville football game to see a 2022 linebacker commit Gabe Powers play. And so we'll be doing some of that, and we'll be all over the state this weekend. So check us out, and we'll have video, interviews, and insights on our message board as well.
What you got for us, Kevin?
I'm at BuckeyeGrove.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Kevin_Noon. And we're excited about the start of the Ohio high school season. We're going to be charting stats of all the commits and major targets that will be playing this week. It's still kind of hodgepodge of who's going there and who's going and who's not in terms of high school seasons. I'm still really disappointed in terms of just good high school action that Jack Sawyer will not be playing this year, preparing for his mid-year enrollment at Ohio State. And, I would say keep it tuned in. A major Ohio State target, Bennett Christian, will be announcing on the 1st of September. Have a pretty good feeling about where he's going on that one, and wouldn't be talking about it if I didn't think it was going to end up well for the good guys.
There you go.
Steve, I see you popping up from time to time all over the place.
Yeah, I do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And actually, I'm going to a high school game tonight, but not in accordance with my job with Bucknuts. I help out the local newspaper here in Licking County, the Newark Advocate. And it's funny, some of the scheduling quirks that came about when schools had to put together a quickie 6-game season. And Granville is playing a game against Waverly, which is halfway between Columbus and Portsmouth. And it looks like about an hour and a half, hour and 40-minute drive. And it's weird. I'm helping out the Newark paper and the Chillicothe paper, both Gannett newspapers, and I'm going to a game. No prospects at this game, Granville and Waverly, but both teams were second-round playoff teams last year. So it should be a fun game for me to go to tonight. And I do that, I'll be at Pickerington Central, who I believe has a Notre Dame commitment next week. Unfortunate, Pickerington Central, Pickerington North are playing on ESPN2, I believe, on Sunday, but no Jack Sawyer. Now, there are some younger guys, I think, at Pick Central that might be worth tuning in to check out. And I haven't decided if I'm going to try and hit that one yet or not. But any rate, I did a story today on our site about the options that people were given for their season tickets. You put your money down back in February and March, and then they canceled the season in July or August, and you have to make a decision what you want them to do with your money. And about half the people pushed their money to 2021. About 30-40% of the people asked for a direct refund on the spot. Only about 5 or 10% of the people agreed with Ohio State to allow them to donate the money, get a tax-deductible donation to the athletic department general fund to help them kind of bridge this gap. So, and I wrote the story and asked people for their responses, and the bitterness in some of the responses about what they decided to do with their money and why are just nothing short of hilarious. When you read some of the comments, donate my money to them. Are you crazy? That type of thing. I will not support the Big Ten. I will not support our athletic department that didn't stand up to the Big Ten. Just militant. They love Ohio State football, but they're unhappy with the process right now, no question. So I thought that was kind of a cool story that I put up today. Just some comments from anonymous people about what they did with their $1,200 or whatever it was for 2 tickets. Did they push it to 20? That my wife actually gets 2 tickets herself, and that's what we did. Is we put them to next year. So thankfully, in February or March, I won't have to write a check for $1,200 to Ohio State on her behalf.
We topped out around 115 on the line. Most of you missed about the first half of the show, so please check it out. The video will post in the next 15 or 20 minutes, and you get the insight and perspective on what's going on with Ohio State football in the Big Ten in this big battle that's being waged for football in the fall right now. Again, Tony Gerdeman, Steve Helway, and Kevin Noon, they're the very best. Hope you guys out there appreciate what we deliver each and every week, and it's all thanks to them. All right, guys, thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
Thanks.
Take care.
Have a good one.